I just want to be hard to play against. I mean, that's the name of the game. Be hard to play against. And second half we were. We held them to 29% in the second half.
Like I said, just not giving myself too much, just trusting the work that I put in and just understanding, like, when I get my opportunities, I got to stay aggressive.
What does it take to flip the script in a tied WNBA game? For the Minnesota Lynx, it came down to 15 fiery minutes where Cheryl Reeve didn't hold back. What did she say during halftime that turned this game into a blowout? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What happens when a coach refuses to let her team settle? Cheryl Reeve delivered a halftime talk that Courtney Williams described as unforgettable. And for good reason. This wasn't just some generic pep talk. This was a wake-up call.
So you try to find that balance. I mean, if they're doing what you ask, then you let them go. If they're not, and they need our willing, then we'll do what we have to do.
The Lynx walked into halftime clinging to a 1-point lead, but it didn't feel like they were really in control. They didn't have the defensive presence they needed to shut down the Sparks. The paint was wide open. Reeve had seen this story too many times. Slow starts, flat energy, opponents taking advantage of little mistakes. If the first half showed anything, it was that the Sparks were attacking with ease, and something had to change. Reeve wasn't happy. You could tell by the way Courtney Williams described her tone. She always lets us know. Williams said after the game, that's not just about pointing out poor play, it's about making her team face the habits that hold them back. The way she called out the low energy, the missed rotations, the lack of urgency, that's pure accountability, and it's not polite either. Sometimes you need to shake things up to get results.
Good hard half times, and today in particular, I felt like we had to coach every pass.
And that's exactly what she did. This wasn't an isolated moment either. Reeve has had to deliver similar mid-game reminders all season. If you've been following the Lynx, you know about their slow starts in key games. Too often, they fall into holes early and have to fight their way back. Reeve's frustration is less about the score and more about the mindset. She knows her team has what it takes, and she refuses to let them settle for anything less. That's what makes these halftime speeches so powerful.
I just want to be hard to play against. I mean, that's the name of the game. Be hard to play against. And second half we were. We held them to 29% in the second half.
There's science and strategy behind this too. In basketball, the halftime break is one of the most crucial moments to make adjustments. Studies show that teams who take meaningful steps to correct their flaws during halftime often perform better in the second half. Look at some of the greatest comebacks in WNBA or NBA history, and you'll find coaches playing a major role in turning the tide. It's not just about schemes and strategy, it's about shifting the team's mentality in real time. Players can adjust defensively or offensively, but only if they believe in the changes being demanded of them. That's exactly the edge Reeve brought to the Lynx in this game. By now, you're probably wondering what those halftime moments were really like. Imagine being in that locker room, down on yourself after a half where you barely kept the lead. Courtney Williams phrased it best when she said Reeve doesn't sugarcoat anything. So when the Lynx sat down, they heard an urgent message. The defense wasn't up to par and the effort wasn't enough.
If we're a little bit behind on that side of it and your offense can carry you for a little bit, okay.
Reeve laid it all out. This team had too much talent to be playing at half speed. Her approach wasn't just about fixing mistakes on the court, but igniting that competitive fire off it. And it worked. By the time the third quarter started, you could feel the shift in energy just by watching the Lynx on both sides of the ball. They were faster, sharper, more alert. Everything Reeve called out, letting the paint stay open, being soft on rotations, was addressed. This wasn't by accident. It was a direct result of Reeve demanding excellence during those 15 halftime minutes. One moment that stood out, the Sparks had been getting easy buckets in the paint during the first half, but in the second half, those opportunities disappeared. The Lynx were suffocating the ball handlers, cutting off passing lanes, and rotating like a well-oiled machine. You could almost hear Reeve's voice in their heads as they locked in defensively. This isn't the first time a coach's halftime adjustments have flipped a game. Think about similar moments in recent WNBA games, where a coach's fiery halftime message led to a completely different second half. It's a reminder of how much mentality and leadership matter in basketball. X's and O's are critical, sure, but motivating a team to actually raise their level of play, that's something special. The real payoff happened as the Lynx clawed their way to control of the game.
It's not a formula to let a team hang around and believe that they can beat you. And maybe your offense isn't as good, and next thing you know, because you weren't playing as hard as you could play early.
What started as a 1-point lead became absolute domination. That second half wasn't just about the players performing better, it was about a team believing they could overwhelm their opponent. Look at the way they clamped down on defense, forcing turnovers and disrupting the Sparks at every turn. Look at Nafisa Collier, leading by example, playing confidently on both ends of the court. It all started from that halftime talk that spark Cheryl Reeve lit under her team.
But we don't make excuses. Whoever's playing, we have an expectation. And so
her halftime speech wasn't about just delivering words, it was a challenge. And the Lynx didn't just respond, they made a statement. They left the locker room with a mission no one could miss. They locked down the Sparks, found energy they hadn't shown in the first half, and executed with a confidence that felt unstoppable. What's wild is how simple the moment was in concept. 15 minutes in a locker room, a coach refusing to accept mediocrity, and a group of players choosing to rise to the occasion.
I just didn't want to wait until we watched film, the next day and show them where you are.
But it's the execution of that moment that made it unforgettable. The Lynx not only left halftime determined, they left transformed. And all of it sets up the next story, how they took this new energy onto the court and turned this close game into an easy win. Nafisa Collier's brilliance, a defense that went from shaky to rock solid. That all tied back to one pivotal moment, Cheryl Reeve pushing every button her team needed in that locker room. A 1-point lead at halftime turned into a 14-point victory by the final buzzer. How did the Lynx flip the game so dramatically? It wasn't just about effort, it came down to focus, adjustments, and everyone doing their part. The second half was a completely different story, and it all started with the Sparks exploiting the Lynx's defense in the first half. Let's break it down. The Sparks were getting whatever they wanted in the paint before halftime. Los Angeles attacked the rim with ease, carving through the Lynx's defense and finding open looks inside. At one point, it felt like the Lynx were just reacting, flat-footed, giving up second-chance opportunities. Cheryl Reeve had to watch her team struggle with the same defensive lapses that had cost them in previous games, and you could see the frustration building. The Sparks deserved credit for taking advantage, but it was clear the Lynx needed to wake up if they wanted to hold on to the lead.
They responded. I think that's probably the most important thing, is we responded. We still fouled too much in the third quarter. Fourth quarter got a little bit better.
The question was simple. Could the Lynx meet the moment? It's one thing to talk about energy and discipline, but could they actually bring that intensity out of the locker room and lock it in for the rest of the game? Reeve's halftime message hit hard, but let's be honest, fans had seen this team falter before. They wondered, could the Lynx play two strong halves of basketball without slipping? From the jump in the third quarter, the answer was a resounding yes. It didn't take long to notice the difference. Let's look at one of the turning points early in the second half. It started with the Lynx cutting off driving lanes. Suddenly, the paint wasn't wide open for easy layups. On one possession, you could see Nafisa Collier putting in work, staying locked on her assignment, forcing a tough shot. The Sparks had no space in the middle, no rhythm. The Lynx weren't just guarding, they were smothering. And Collier? This game was her masterpiece. With 23 points, she carried the Lynx on both ends of the floor. You want to talk about dominance? Watch her go to work. Post moves, mid-range jumpers, hustle plays. Collier did everything, but it wasn't just about the scoring. Reeve called out the defense at halftime, and Collier responded. She was closing out on shooters, snagging rebounds, and setting the tone for the entire squad. It felt like every time the Sparks tried to make a run, Collier was there to slam the door shut. Courtney Williams had her fingerprints all over this win too. She dropped 13 points and 10 assists, her second double-double of the season. Williams is one of those players who consistently elevates her team. After the game, she reflected on Reeve's halftime message, saying, Cheryl always comes in at halftime and lets us know. That tells you everything you need to know about how this team takes ownership in the second half. Williams played like she got the message loud and clear. She pushed the pace, fed her teammates in the right spots, and hit timely buckets when the game got tight.
Like I said, just not giving myself too much, just trusting the work that I put in and just understanding like when I get my opportunities, I got to stay aggressive.
To illustrate just how much things changed, let's go to the stats. The Sparks were doing damage inside early on, but after halftime, that paint basically turned into a no-fly zone. The Lynx cleaned up their rotations, stopped overcommitting, and made life miserable for anyone trying to work in the low post. They held the Sparks to 29 points in the entire second half. That's a defensive clinic right there. Shooting percentages tell the story too. While the Sparks were efficient before halftime, the lid basically closed on the basket once the Lynx locked in. Los Angeles couldn't find the looks they were getting before, and their offense completely stalled.
From the first minute of the game, and have a collective effort. That's what I'd like to see us do.
This wasn't just about the Lynx finding answers defensively, though. Once the defense stepped up, it fueled the offense. The third quarter energy was infectious. Forced turnovers turned into fast breaks. Simple stops on one end led to smooth, confident plays on the other. Reeve demanded effort, and the team responded with a level of execution that overwhelmed the Sparks.
Just understanding that we got to come out and be aggressive and punch people first, not punch people in the third, because
you know what's even bigger than the final score? The proof that this team could adjust and improve on the fly. This wasn't just about beating Los Angeles. It wasn't about adding a win to the column. Think about how often the Lynx have struggled to respond to adversity in the past. This time was different. They showed that under pressure, they didn't fold. They got better. That's huge, especially when you're a team trying to find consistency before the playoffs. This game sent a message. The Lynx didn't just win, they proved a point. When this team locks in, they can dominate, and when Cheryl Reeve challenges them, they don't back down. The second half wasn't just about redeeming themselves after a rough first half, it was about showing what they're really capable of.
That we said was that we don't want to be a second half team. So the energy that we've been bringing in the second half, we want to bring for 40 minutes. So
as the season moves on, remember games like this. This wasn't just a regular win. The Lynx figured something out. When they bring their second half defensive mindset for all 40 minutes, they're tough to beat. Reeve knows what it takes to push this team, and the players showed they can respond when it matters most. But the bigger question remains, can they keep doing this? Will we see the same adjustments, the same fire, the same locked-in mentality as the season heats up? If they do, they'll be dangerous heading into the postseason. It's not just about winning anymore, it's about building momentum. And this game showed that when the Lynx play like this, they don't just win, they dominate.
The hard part for the coaches, we don't get in there until, it was such a long walk to our locker room that it was probably 9 minutes we got in.
Making sure, if you open, you got to take that shot. And we trust that whoever is taking that shot is going to knock that shot down.
This game wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Cheryl Reeve's halftime adjustments proved how leadership and resilience can flip the script, transforming a shaky first half into a dominant finish. More importantly, it set the tone for what the Lynx could accomplish this season. As Courtney Williams put it, we don't want to be a second half team. That mindset shows their commitment to playing a full 40 minutes of intense, disciplined basketball. If they can keep up this defensive energy, what's stopping them from making a real playoff push? Fans, stay locked in. Cheryl Reeve and the Lynx aren't done yet.